Happy New Year to all our viewers. Thank you so much for joining us and for making us, in 2024, Boston's most watched Sunday morning public affairs show. We appreciate it, and we hope you'll hang in there with us in the coming year, which is going to feature a lot of interesting issues coming to a head on Beacon Hill and elsewhere. Here to help us preview some of the big stories to come in the new year is veteran Boston political reporter Gin Dumcius of CommonwealthBeacon.org, the website that features in-depth daily coverage of politics and policy. Gin, you do great work there, and it's good to have you here. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So, both Senate President Karen Spilka and House Speaker Ron Mariano, in their inaugural speeches this past week, criticized the local media for coverage that they say didn't do justice to the legislature's accomplishments during 2024. Do they have a point?
Well, I think you've always seen that push and pull with the media in Beacon Hill, right? I mean, I think certainly they've kept working, but a lot of the negative news coverage has been self-inflicted on their part. They've blown past deadlines. We've had the headlines from the Globe about a top lawmaker having a close relationship with a lobbyist. Mm-hmm. So you have all that in the mix. And I think in terms of the way the Senate President Spilka was saying about the fragmentation of the media, that's true. But that also means that lawmakers have the biggest avenue right now to directly reach constituents. They can bypass the media if they want. The bigger problem for the legislature right now is Diana DeZoglio, the state auditor. And she's been the one who's really been pounding the pavement on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, if the courts clear the way for her to conduct or use the audit powers that she was given in the ballot question last fall, and she does do the kind of thorough audit of the legislature's finances that she has argued is necessary. You've been around a while. Do you think she's going to find anything funky?
That's a good question. I mean, it's one of those things where let's see what the books say if they're willing to open them up. But I think in what a lot of political analysts that I talk to say, she's in many ways already won. She got the ballot question through. She is one of the most intense campaigners statewide. Yeah. She's, like Steve Lynch and others. She's really up there in terms of meeting voters. Even when she could be vacationing somewhere, she'd rather be meeting voters. So, she obviously has her eyes set for higher office, and this has offered her a platform to go get that higher office.
As a Democrat, necessarily?
I would say so. I mean, I think she's got a lot of support from unions. They've backed her since her early days.
That's important for a statewide candidate.
It is indeed, and they've stuck with her even as she's pounded Democratic leadership over this audit.
Yeah, well, the organized labor in this state is not necessarily always thrilled with the legislative leadership, correct?
That's true. They do criticize lawmakers, and that's they withhold endorsements sometimes.
Well, before we take our break here, when you think about the coming year, what's likely to be a big or the biggest flashpoint between organized labor and Beacon Hill? I mean, one thing that comes to mind is the tension between the Mass Teachers Association and legislative leaders who opposed the dropping of MCAS as a graduation requirement. And now you're talking about that they're going to be pushing for the right to strike, and also new graduation standards have to be put into place. That's going to be controversial, right?
That's going to be huge. I mean, the MTA must be feeling pretty good after their victory.
Yeah, they should be.
So they'll be pushing. Their super PAC, while they were pushing the ballot question, the teachers union super PAC was also helping get legislators elected. So they've been fighting a battle on multiple fronts, and that's really, I think you'll see a clash between legislature, the teachers union, and business groups.
Again, Governor Healey has kind of a pivotal year ahead. Well, for one thing, she has to decide probably by the end of the year whether or not she's going to seek a second term. But any day now, we're expecting the big ruling from the SJC on the MBTA Communities Act, the state law passed under former Governor Baker that mandates zoning changes by communities that are served by the T to promote affordable housing construction. The recommendations of her own Transportation Study Committee are due, which may involve tax hikes or other what do they call it, peak pricing, increases in tolls, that kind of thing coming up. The migrant issues are still lingering. When this year is over, are we going to still be wondering if she wants another term?
Well, I think the knock on her in some corners of Beacon Hill is that she's conflict averse. And I think this year, we're going to find out how conflict averse she is or isn't.
How so?
You mentioned the transportation.
Yeah.
The funding gap is huge. The team needs more money.
Yeah.
So deciding what to do, and it could be controversial. I mean, if you saw what happened in New York with congestion pricing, and the governor there kind of backing off it, and then kind of coming back to it in part. I think you're going to see exactly how far she wants to go on that kind of thing. And then on the migrant crisis, she's been trying to walk this line of not angering the incoming Trump administration too much. Certainly, I know she was on a call with donors recently that she tried to indicate, she's like, well, I'm going to let other governors kind of stick their heads up above the parapet. Mm-hmm. That's something else, and we'll just see how conflict averse she is or isn't.
She wasn't shy as Attorney General, but it's different being governor.
It is, and she's definitely been taking the Charlie Baker route of trying to be, more conciliatory, certainly working with the legislature, much more so behind the scenes. I think a lot of what we see in public, there's a lot that happens behind the closed doors in terms of negotiations. Yeah.
Well, her reelection is still a ways away. That would be next year, 2026. But up this fall is Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. She has said she's running, no reason to doubt that. And of course, we all wish her well on the forthcoming birth of her third child. But there are at least two serious potential challengers out there. City Councilor Ed Flynn and Josh Kraft, the philanthropist and member of the famous Kraft family. Do you think either one is going to run? They got to make up their minds soon, right?
Well, I mean, in terms of Josh Kraft, he's got the family money, so he does have some time. My indications, at least from conversations before the holidays, was that he was still expected to put his name in. It's just a question of when is the announcement coming. And the family money could also come into play through a super PAC, which doesn't have spending or contribution limits.
Is Michelle Wu vulnerable?
That's hard to say. I mean, I'm bad at predictions, right? I think I once told you that.
You're not worse than me, but go ahead.
I think if you look at the history of the Boston mayor, the position, voters are more likely than not to reelect the incumbent. So I think even people who are close to Josh Kraft have kind of said that, it's going to be a tough road.
Yeah, well, no doubt about that. It's going to be an interesting road, though, and if you want to know what's going on on Beacon Hill and Boston politics, you've got to read Gin Dumcius and his colleagues at CommonwealthBeacon.org. Gin, thank you.
Thank you.
Come again soon.